Welcome, one and all, wherever you are in the world. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon. Today we're back with another one of Nathan Bell's commentary videos. Like, subscribe, share, spread Nathan's views around the world. They're good conversation starters. Today, Nathan wants to talk about affecting change.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are very cynical and say, oh, you'll never change the world for the better, you'll never make the world a better place. I don't agree with that. I believe we have to be active in building a better world. We want to build a better future for humanity. We want life to be good for as many people as possible. People deserve to live good lives, and there is a lot of injustice and suffering in the world. And, we have to fight injustice and suffering. We want life to be good for people. We want the human civilization to work in a way where life is good for as many people as possible. We have to be patient with affecting change, and we have to be persistent. I've been trying to inform people and inspire people to be active in politics for years, with my music and with my art, my anti-war music, and with my activities in the street. I promote freedom of information because I believe we should scrutinise the government. I've distributed formerly classified government material to people and spoke to them about classified projects, trying to open people's minds to the level of corruption that can exist in government. So you have to be active out on the street campaigning people, because what it comes down to at the end of the day is you're trying to engage people in the issues, and you're trying to convince people of your position. So there are people who aren't convinced of your position, and there are people who aren't engaged in the issues, who aren't informed, who don't know, and you want to engage them and get them informed and get them passionate and inspire them to take action. And then in my mind, a lot of it comes down to how that translates to how people vote. But you've got to be very active, and I think one of the most important things with affecting change is to have a well-established worldview, and to know what you're talking about, and to know your facts, and to understand the issues, and to actually have a platform, have your own platform, or align yourself with a platform of an organisation that you agree with. I've been involved with different organisations. I've attended meetings of the Socialist Alliance, the Socialist Equality Party. I've gotten involved with the Greens, Amnesty International over the years, different groups that I've participated in. I did some volunteer work with the local union movement. So you can either have your own platform and your own individual ideas and stand on that, or you can align yourself with an organisation whose views you share. We stand a better chance at affecting change when we're unified in numbers, and we see that we've established organisations that are able to lobby government and effectively provoke reforms. But one thing I champion is writing to your members, writing to the Prime Minister, writing to different politicians. You might think it's pointless at the end of the day, they're just going to ignore you, but at least you're putting your position out there and speaking your mind, and that's what you can do. That's your power in democracy, to speak your mind. So write to the politicians and have a well-established, well-considered view, and say something intelligent to them when you write to them, and tell them how you think the world should run. You have a right to express how you think the world should be. We all have a right to have our own view of how the world should be, and to express how we think the world should be, and to have our own concept of justice and right and wrong. I write to politicians a lot, frequently, very regularly. I email politicians. I've emailed the Prime Minister, I've emailed the Health Minister. I bombarded Peter Dutton with hundreds of emails when he was the Defence Minister. I emailed Greg Hunt hundreds of times. I emailed the former Police Commissioner Mick Fuller hundreds of times. I have emailed so many politicians and authority figures that they know who I am, and they know exactly what I think, because I've told them over and over and over again. So I'm trying to get in their heads, and in some way I'm trying to mind control them, and I'm trying to indoctrinate them into my platform and my beliefs. See, I stand a better chance at affecting change because I've come up with a well-considered worldview, so I can actually start indoctrinating other people into my worldview. because you're trying to convince people, right? You're trying to say, this is how I think it should be. So you have to actually know how you think it should be. And so if you want to speak about how you think the world should be, you better actually have a good idea of how the world should be, and it better be intelligent and well considered. Otherwise, what are you going to tell people? Oh, I think we should end war. You can't just say, I think we should end war. Say something a bit more intelligent than that. How do we end war? How do we deal with security threats, and how do we minimise the need for military in a violent world? Say something informed and intelligent, not just, oh, end war, end war, end war. You've got to have a bit more going for you than that. So come up with your views and think and study politics and understand the issues, and try and look at both sides of the political spectrum, and try and look at different ideologies and philosophies and consider them, and come up with a platform that you can pitch to people. That's what all these politicians are doing. They all have their own platform and their own worldview that they're pitching. And there are many great ways you can get involved in politics. You could become an independent and start your own political party. I'd love to start my own political party. I wrote a manifesto which expressed many of my radical ideas, and I distributed around 1,000 copies of my manifesto around Newcastle. I was hoping I could start a political party and become an independent. It hasn't happened, but many people have read my ideas, so I'm getting in their head and making them think, and I'm inspiring them to think, and I'm being thought provocative and making people think outside the box. And I put really outrageous ideas out there intentionally just to provoke thought and to get people thinking differently, because I think that will inspire them to have their own unique thoughts and their own worldview. See, I've got an agenda, a very specific agenda, and I'm pushing it on people, so I'm trying to mind control people. But I'm not trying to mind control people, because I want you to be active in having your own ideas. But protest action is good as well. And the more strength we show in numbers, the more... it's about public opinion at the end of the day in democracy. So when we protest, we're showing that a large number of the community support a specific view, and then the politicians feel pressured to change policy to be in fitting with the action that the protesters are taking. So the more people protesting on a cause, the more pressure there is on the politicians to change policy. And it all comes down to policy and what policy says, and we're trying to change policy. When we lobby from a position, we want to change policy. So there have been victories. There have been civil rights victories all around the world. Minority groups, black people have more rights now than they've had in the past. People are treated more fairly. Once upon a time, Aboriginals couldn't go into the pub under the White Australian policy. That's gone now. Now everyone can go into the pub. So there have been victories, and gays can now marry now, and people can now be openly gay in the street, and they're not... they're still discriminated against, but not like they were in the 50s and 60s. So we've seen progress, and we've seen victories, and now gays can marry. So we see that victory and that progress, and that's good. But a lot of it comes down to how culture changes, and it takes generations for culture to change. So it's a slow process. So you've got to be persistent and patient, and you've got to hang in there and keep believing in your cause. Don't give up, and know that it takes time for people's views to change, because people can be very stuck in their ways. So it takes generations for culture to change, but over time we do build a better world, and over time we do convince people to be fairer and treat each other right, and we are ending discrimination, and life is getting better. Once upon a time there was no Centrelink in Australia. Now we have Centrelink, so people aren't living in poverty with no money, so at least people have some money now. So things are getting better, and slowly we will win more and more victories if we persist, but it comes down to knowing what policy you want. You have to actually have an idea how you want policy to change. Because it's all of the decision making and the way the country is run comes down to what the government's policies are. So if you want to affect change, you've got to have an idea of what you want the policy to be to make the world the way you want it to be. So don't give up. Keep fighting for change. Keep being an activist. Keep campaigning. Keep lobbying. Write to your politicians. Write your own manifesto and distribute your own manifesto, and tell the world how you think the world should be, and tell us what policies you want to see, and think about what policies you want. So drop a comment in the comment section about what you think about reform and change activism.